Think so.
Alrighty. I think we're going to be good here. I will try to focus in when you need me to.
Okay.
Okay. Alright, so whenever you are ready.
We're rolling?
We are rolling.
We're rolling. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming in. Welcome to our first more major edition of the HeroClix History Channel, filmed here in the cave. Today we're going to go over the very first set in this historical set in a series that I want you to know I'm dedicating to the newer players who've always wanted to know a little bit more about the game they're playing, but just didn't know where to look. Well, here's one place that you can definitely look, because we're going to go over some of the neat details from the very first set. That would be the set laid out in front of me. Yeah, there's a few holes in it. 18 years of bouncing around, I think, has caused pieces to shift into other places. I know I do have more than this, but this will be enough for me to tell you what I need to tell you about this set that came out in 2002, summer, just after my son was born. So it's an 18-year-old set, and it is called Infinity Challenge, the very first published set. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about how HeroClix was put together and how it was played that are so different from today. And we're going to touch on a few of those today. So, first of all, one of the first things people notice is that there are multiples of all the main characters in the set. And those multiples come with colored rings. Now, let's see here. Who can I grab? We'll just grab old Hobgoblin here. And you might be able to see that he has a yellow colored ring around his base. And there are three colors. Yellow means rookie, blue means experienced, and red means veteran. Now you might think that, okay, the veterans, those are the ones I gotta go for, those are the power pieces, those are the best ones. Not necessarily. When they were developing this set, and they laid these out in these three distinct ranks, what they were showing us was the history of that character as they were in comics at the time. And a wonderful example of this is Rogue. And I'm going to pick up Rookie Rogue here and show you that when they made her, they gave her the Brotherhood team ability because she started out evil, remember, if you know your comics history. And in this case, she did not fly. She's grounded. That's showing that during her early time as a character, at least when this set was made, they were looking at the history and being accurate with it. And then, as we look at the blue level Rogue, or experienced, we're showing her midway through her comic book history, and she's gained the ability to fly, which is what these little bases were to signify. The flight base told you that they fly, along with a little symbol on the dial of a wing. The flight bases also had something else interesting. We'll get that in just a second. But then you get to the veteran, of course, and in this case, the character is much stronger because in the storyline, she was much stronger as a veteran. Now, what about those flight bases? Well, the flight base had this fun little indicator on it that moves up and down. And what that signified is the level that your character was flying at on the map. If you put it into the up position, if it'll stay there, it meant your character was soaring high up in the air, and therefore a little bit harder to target. Down low, and you're down closer to the ground where you can be treated as a normal target. There was a few targeting rules that would go into effect during soaring, such as half of range could only be shot at half of a person's printed range, and it required at least one space of movement to change your altitude as a flying character. Now, as far as rarities are concerned, rarities weren't really such a thing back then. The rarer pieces seem to be the uniques. And here we'll look at unique Wolverine. And the uniques were based on special times in the character's storyline that made them stand out. And a unique was a character you could only have one of on your force. And there were several uniques, and it seemed like the uniques were rarer than, say, your red, blue, and yellow version characters. We also have Professor X here. And showing you these two characters, you might notice something else very interesting. For example, you might notice that there's a blue base on this Wolverine. And several of the characters have these colored bases. What these colored bases meant in the early games was that the characters who had them matching, for example, I'm going to call him Professor X. See, I'm doing good. Professor X and Magneto have a dark green base. They are arch enemies. And the rule at the time was that these two could not be on the same team. And opposing each other, you would score extra points if a figure KO'd their arch nemesis figure. Now, I don't remember offhand if that was double points. I think it was, but you can go ahead and hit me in the comments and correct me on that. I'd love to see that someone else knows a little bit of their trivia. We also have the first Colossal that was developed, and it was also assigned to Infinity Challenge a little ways after the set came out, and that would be our Sentinel. The Sentinel came with interchangeable hands, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that right back in there. Old plastic. Here we go. Come on.
It flew.
It flew. I'm gonna put that back on later. But the hands would turn. They were interchangeable. And one of the cool things about this is he was the first figure that could capture. And you could even set a figure in his hand. And if he carried them all the way back to his starting zone, they were KO'd and he scored their points. The set had a lot going for it. It covered the X-Men. It covered a little bit of the Avengers. It covered S.H.I.E.L.D. and a little bit of Hydra. And it was a set I remember well. I remember the excitement of seeing this first come out. And it came in booster packs of 4 pieces instead of 5. And I remember some of the boosters costing around, I think, $8.99. If I'm remembering correctly. Again, if I'm wrong, please hit me in the comments, because that's where we can have some fun and tell me about it. This is the very first set, and while I have some holes in it, we'll probably fill those in later on. Lots of great pieces, lots of great memories. I remember this guy being one of the absolute favorites because, as we called him, he was Mr. Damage Hose, because of his ranged combat expert and pretty decent range. And the stats, while they can't necessarily hold up to today's figures, this guy probably still could. There were other differences, such as you could fly and carry a figure and that figure could still have an action. There was also a difference in hypersonic speed, and that being that if the figures didn't leave each other from adjacency, and as long as you hit, when you hit that character, as long as you scored the hits, you could keep rolling. Their defense would go up by 1, and for every time you scored, you got 1 click of damage. If you were hot on the dice, you could just about KO a figure. So, that is our first edition of the HeroClix History Channel and the very first HeroClix set. I'll be digging into a lot more information and looking forward to hearing from you. And next time, we're going to aim at the first DC set. So make sure to catch in here, check with me, and keep rolling boxcars. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you next time.